It just seemed like the perfect time to do that, which I'd been always kind of wanting to do, be a part of the solution to problems.
I heard about the summit by reading the Plain Dealer.
I heard about the summit when they called a closed door meeting in December of invited about 200 civic and corporate leaders to discuss the future of Cleveland's economic trajectory. Heard about that in the media and have been following ever since.
We heard about it through different media channels, and actually my entire team is here.
I heard about the summit because I check the MIV daily when I go to work. The MIV is basically an update of what's going on in Cleveland and what's going on in Metro.
I think I was just on social media and I came across a few posts and some questions that were asking people to take interest in the city and the vision for the future. I thought I could be one of those people, and I just went to the website and signed up.
Well, first of all, I was just totally surprised by a couple things. The first surprise was when they opened up the website to begin to invite people and register to come to a 2.5-day planning. In a week and a half. To me, that says something about the desire for new ways to come together, to close the empathy gap, to collaborate, to bring the sectors, government, nonprofit, for-profit sectors together. And what excites me is the goodwill I see here.
You know, the night before, I read through the materials again, and I just knew that the process was going to be positive because of the people. Clevelanders are very direct, but they have very good hearts. So I attach to that good heart from being in the South. But they're very direct. I mean, we're not so direct. We just say stuff and then end it and bless your heart. But Clevelanders are very direct. So what you see is what you get, but they come from good intentions. There's just a kindness and generosity in Clevelanders to me.
The Marketing and Communications Manager for Downtown Cleveland Alliance. I'm a community organizer and co-op developer with Cleveland Owns.
I'm a retired school educator. I work at Global Cleveland.
I am the Executive Director of Neighborhood Leadership Institute.
I'm retired. I work for County.
I am an attorney, and I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio.
I grew up in Mayfield, and now I live in Detroit, Shoreway.
Originally from Cleveland and moved here recently from San Francisco. I grew up in Dayton and Canton.
Born in Cleveland, but raised in Cleveland Heights and now live in Bedford.
I'm a lifelong Clevelander. I live in the Shaker Square area right now, but before that, I lived in the Lee Harvard neighborhood for about 40 years.
I grew up on the east side of Cleveland, East 131st and Miles area, and I grew up with hardworking parents, but we couldn't always make ends meet. So I always just felt so ashamed, and I wanted to get out of the cycle of poverty. So right now, with me being an attorney, I finally am making a decent wage. I no longer feel that shame, and I just want other people to have that same opportunity, be able to climb up out of poverty.
I think when we look at the whole body of work at the end of today, we're going to say, you know, this is why we came together as a group. This is why a small group can't do this. This is why we are a community.
I don't know if you know yet how unique you are. And I've said this over and over again to many of you. What you have put in motion has never, ever been tried in the history of the United States.
Okay, so we're going to get started now. It does begin in approximately 5 minutes, but I think we're starting right now, right? Beverly and Hannah? Thank you.
I
No?
was nervous because I didn't know exactly.
Oh, we're starting. We're going to run it again. As more people arrive. Okay.
Log in, just in case
My-
I figured out whatever my idea was. I was nervous of how a lot of people was going to come together to come up with one idea.
just based off the conversations that have been happening around Cleveland, around diversity and inclusion. And I know that this is part of keeping that conversation going.
So coming into this, I kind of represent like the faith community in my profession. And so the question I ask is, how can the faith community be a part of the sector that helps surrounding communities? So I know community coming here was to hear from people and then contribute my thoughts and ask questions, listen to responses as other people can best play their part in creating a well-rounded Cleveland experience, residents and visitors alike.
I've always wanted to feel like that I could help make something better in society. And so when I heard about this summit, it just seemed like a perfect time to do that, which I've been always kind of wanting to do, be a part of the solution to problems.
I heard about the summit by reading the blame deal.
I heard about the summit when they called a closed door meeting in December of invited about 200 civic and corporate leaders to discuss the future of Cleveland's economic trajectory. Heard about that in the media.
I'm trying to figure out how to do that. I'm sorry. I kept clicking and clicking. I don't know.
I heard about the summit because I checked the MIV daily when I go to work. The MIV is basically an update of what's going on in Cleveland and what's going on in Metro.
I think I was just on social media and I came across a few posts and some questions.
I don't see how I can forward this thing that I'm on.
Interest in the city and the vision for the future. I thought I could be one of those people, and I just went to the website and signed up.
Well, first of all, I was just totally surprised by a couple things. The first surprise was when they opened up the website to begin to invite people and register to come to a 2.5-day planning event, significant amount of time. You know, over 500 people signed up within a week and a half.
I have something I'm going to try to send to you, personal or
for new ways to come together.
Hey.
Close the empathy.
I'm all right. I'm doing good.
Bring the sectors,
I'm good.
for-profit sectors together. And what excites me is the group I see here.
And you're okay?
I read through the materials again.
Yeah. You know, I got a call last night from James CLE.
Because of the people. Clevelanders are very direct, but they have very good hearts. So I attach to that good heart from being in the South. But they're very direct. I mean, we're not so direct. We just say stuff and then end it and bless your heart. But Clevelanders are very direct. So what you see is what you get, but they come from good intentions. There's just a kindness and generosity in Clevelanders to me.
The Marketing and Communications Manager for Downtown Cleveland Alliance. I'm a community organizer and co-op developer with Cleveland Owns.
I'm a retired school educator. I work at Global Cleveland.
I am the Executive Institute.
I'm retired. I work for Cuyahoga County.
I am an attorney, and I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio.
I grew up in Mayfield, and now I live in Detroit, Troy.
Originally from Cleveland and moved here recently from San Francisco.
I grew up in Dayton and Canton.
Born in Cleveland, but raised in Cleveland Heights and now live in Bedford.
I'm a lifelong Clevelander. I live on the Shaker Square area right now, but before that, I lived in the Lee Harbor neighborhood for about 40 years.
I grew up on the east side of Cleveland, East 131st and Miles area, and I grew up with hardworking parents, but we couldn't always make ends meet. So I always just felt so ashamed, and I wanted to get out of the cycle of poverty. So right now, with me being an attorney, I finally am making a decent wage. I no longer feel that shame, and I just want other people to have that same opportunity to be able to climb up out of poverty.
I think when we look at the whole body of work at the end of today, we're going to say, you know, this is why we came together as a group. This is why a small group can't do this. This is why we are a community.
I don't know if you know yet how unique you are. And I've said this over and over again to many of you. What you have put in motion has never, ever been tried in the history of the United States.
Okay, thanks everybody. Sorry about those minor technical difficulties. Thank you for bearing with us, and welcome to the Cleveland Rising Report Out. I see a lot of familiar names and names I haven't seen before, and a very special welcome to all of you, even one from New Jersey. So special welcome to and a shout out to our friend from New Jersey. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge what has happened this week. The murder of George Floyd is very much on the minds of, I think, probably every single one of us. And so is the murder of Breonna Taylor in Louisville. Though these are the names of just the most recent victims, and there are protests today across the country. As our governor said yesterday, protests expressing outrage are not only understandable, they're appropriate. And Ohioans should speak out against wrongdoing. Ohioans should speak out for change. It's important for us to remember too that Cleveland Rising has always been about change and creating a more equitable future for everyone. President Obama reminded us yesterday that we all hold the responsibility to, quote, create a new normal in which the legacy and unequal treatment no longer infects our institutions or our hearts. That's what we're doing. That should motivate us. Our history as a deeply divided city is something we need to overcome to create this new normal. And I think we all hope that coming together, sharing our stories and our ideas in forums can be one part of that effort. So we thank all of you for being here and for the work you've done up to this point. I'm going to take a moment to walk us through the agenda. We're going to just start with the summit and the summit itself and remind ourselves what we accomplished then. We're going to hear about progress from each of the work groups that's able to participate today, and then talk about feedback and next steps, and then close it out. And we have several people speaking today. Some are going to read directly from their slides. Some will paraphrase a little bit. But I want to remind us all too, as well, of our original objective, that Cleveland Rising's objective was to bring the community together to set goals for our economic future and to build trust. The co-chairs are a diverse group of volunteers, together with Drs. Cooper Ryder and Fry from the Fowler Center at Case Western Reserve University. They designed a 3-day Appreciative Inquiry Summit that was held October 31st, 2019 in our own historic public auditorium. Appreciative Inquiry takes participants through a specific process, sharing stories about the best moments that we've all had in the community.
We have this flow or process that in our terminology, it goes from discovery to dream to design to deployment or delivery. And so the first day is spent in what we call discovery and dream. So everybody arrives, they are assigned to tables so that we know they're mixed up as much as we possibly can from their registration information. And we begin the whole process with people pairing off and interviewing each other, sharing stories about the best moments they've had in this community, times when they have felt most proud and connected in this community. And from those stories, then they also then share what are some of the, we call them core strengths or assets that we already have that we should nurture and leverage no matter what else may change. Then we ask the dream question, what to imagine 2030.
Capture the youth that you see. Capture the city that you see, the vibrancy. The nonprofits, the government organizations, everything that you see, vivify 2030. Capture it in words, capture it in pictures, and articulate that with your partner.
So after imagining an ideal future on day one, participants came back on day two and grouped around areas they had the most interest in and how we might achieve the future that we're all dreaming about. Then on day three, they put those dreams into action. We have a clip here of Dr. Fry sharing more about those aspiration statements, that were shared during the summit.
Each of the groups culminated their work with what we call an aspiration statement. So that's a statement of, if we're successful in 2030, what does it look like? So that's the high North Star aspiration. And I think we had about 30 some odd of those, because some of those 21 groups broke into subgroups. They had different ideas that they wanted to pursue together. Each of the groups.
So many meetings that we've all been to. We'll stop there with an aspiration, but there was much more than that. Let's hear one participant talk about what accountability actually means.
I really liked how there is a call for accountability and purposeful follow-up to this event. So they want somebody or somebodies to guide a step-by-step process to make sure that the ideas captured here are implemented. And so that we don't have to come back in 10 or 15 years and have another summit where we talk about good things again. And that was one thing that stood out, along with where people hope to make small steps and large steps alike to implement over time. I really liked how
more than 600 of you, people just like you, attended the summit. And as you heard from Dr. Fry, nearly 32 aspiration statements were made. Each of these statements represented a work group and an action plan. You know, the co-chairs, and I was one of them, we never imagined that the summit would result in 32 working groups. Cleveland Rising isn't an organization, it's an idea. And it's about discovering what is possible when a group of diverse community come together to build a future. The 32 action plans of these groups fit into 6 goal areas.
I think it's critical. I think Cleveland over the years has had many different kinds of committees and plans and things that people never heard about what happened or never knew that maybe Public Square was an outgrowth of these. And it's important to all of us that we make sure that what comes out of the Cleveland Rising Summit is something that people will be talking about, sharing the successes about, sharing the failures, and saying, what can we do better? I think it's critical.
There we go. Transparency builds trust. And this is what the summit was called to do, to build trust by including all voices in a discussion about what we need to do to accelerate the economy throughout Greater Cleveland. So there are 6 goal areas. You can read all the 32 aspiration statements at clerisingssummit.com/working groups. That's clerisingssummit.com/working groups. Today, more than 15 of those launch leaders from the 32 work groups will share their progress for your feedback. So we've got work group progress in these 6 areas: digital access and literacy, entrepreneurship, workforce development, and equitable business growth, equitable civic engagement and community empowerment, health, wellness, and education, land use, transportation, and sustainability, and finally, population growth. So these leaders are joining us today from their homes, as you know. Were not able to join us today, but the aspirations you see were those that were developed at the summit. And we see them as even more important in this post-COVID-19 world. Groups will present by goal. So we're going to queue everybody up and go through this. And we thank you very much for bearing with us and any technical difficulties that might occur. Is digital access and literacy. And presenting today from tech, which ensures that all members of our community are tech proficient, empowered, and actively applying their capabilities to drive an innovative and progressive economy. Got Megan Wilson. Megan? Still.
All right, thanks so much, Dan. for the introduction to the digital access and literacy segment. My name is Megan Wilson, and I'm one of TechUp's 3 launch leaders. As Dan just shared our aspiration, we feel it is as important now during this pandemic as it was in October. To truly address the digital divide, we must consider that digital access needs to be paired with digital literacy, understanding how to use technologies from email to telehealth to online education. The infrastructure that's needed to address the digital divide includes an internet connection, a device, and an understanding as to how to use the technology. Our group elected to focus on the latter aspect of this issue, especially as it relates to all of our community members' job readiness in this burgeoning tech-dependent era. Over the past few months in particular, our team has learned that a little over 4% of people of color are employed in an IT profession. People living in poverty have very limited access to IT training programs due to accessibility, tuition, limited offerings in schools, etc. And many regional employers cannot find local talent with the IT skills they need. We've made some progress over the past few months. We've learned that there isn't one central list of regional IT training programs that can be referenced for understanding what programs are occurring today, what gaps exist within the current set of programs, and the strength and scalability of these programs. We started compiling a list of IT training programs offered throughout the region, recognizing that there are some programs we still may not know about. And going forward, as we continue our work, we still need to connect with additional IT training programs to obtain baseline data. The information that we're collecting is helping us to understand where these programs are located, what % of them are accessible via public transportation or online, the number of these programs that meet regional employers' needs, the % of people living in poverty that are accessing these programs, the % of people of color that are accessing these programs, and the % of people that complete these programs and are then employed in a related tech field, ideally making a decent income. So we hope that what we produce will be helpful in some way, especially as our community might be navigating upskilling in its future projects, especially in light of the pandemic. So that's it for the Tech Up update. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you very much. It is, we really appreciate that, Megan. And I wanted to remind you too, that as you are listening to these, if you want to right now provide any feedback on any of these, you're welcome to CLERisingSummit.com to /working groups to find to find places where you can deliver feedback. Next up, in workforce development and equitable business growth, we're going to hear from Lenora Inez Brown from Local Dreams. Local Dreams is seeking to build an entrepreneurial ecosystem that leverages the public, private, and social sectors. Go ahead, Lenora.
Thanks, Dan. As Dan mentioned, our group Local Dreams, which actually means Locals Cultivating Dreams, seeks to create a central online location where any aspiring entrepreneur, especially those of color, can learn about the organizations and programs that will help them develop their business idea or product. We're not looking to create a whole new not-for-profit. Northeast Ohio has plenty of those with over 16,000, but we do plan to do the following: to build a website that maps where all of the maker spaces, business and entrepreneurial programs are located so that users can know which programs are near them, and business development organizations can better understand which neighborhoods are well-served and those that are underserved, to prevent the silos and the gap in information that Megan just referenced and others will reference during today's update. We also want our website to connect users to the right business program for that particular phase of their project. We want it to be easy to navigate in a way that's written for people who don't have MBAs. So for example, market strategy might be rephrased as the steps to secure customers. We want to build connections with the Cleveland Public Library and to create a network of librarians and staff who can help individuals connect not only with the website, but use it to navigate and understand which phase they are in and which program they should seek help from for that particular phase. We want to build connections with City of Cleveland's Economic Growth Department and link our website to theirs, which has an amazing data resource for any aspiring entrepreneur. Since Cleveland Rising, we have refined our idea. We've secured a domain for Local Dreams. We've secured an intern, and she starts on Monday. We're all very excited. And we've engaged the director of the Cleveland Public Library in some preliminary conversations. All of this work, all of this, what this network, this online network will provide is an effort to bring the rich ecosystem of businesses and entrepreneurial programs that we have here in Cleveland to more people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lenora. I want to address just a couple of things that came up on the group chat. Andrea had mentioned that she was disappointed not to have heard back from the working group that she had participated in at the summit itself. Not all the working groups were able to work at the same pace with the same level of engagement. All of these working groups that are presenting today can use more support and more volunteers. So we hope that any of you who are looking for ways to get involved may be thinking about specifically that. Also, there was I think Kate was hoping to hear from representatives of City Hall. We don't have representatives of City Hall who are presenting today, but if you want to hear from them about how they are engaging with this effort, we really strongly encourage you to go ahead and reach out directly to either your city council member or anybody from the mayor's office. That being said, I'm pleased to introduce Patrick Zemnick. He's going to present on the Global Center for Innovation and Leadership. Go ahead, Patrick.
Thanks, Dan. My name is Patrick. I'm one of 4 launch leaders for the Global Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. It's a collaborative ecosystem of entrepreneurs leveraging regional resources and talent to accelerate the business growth of our community by serving the entrepreneurial needs of all, with a focus on historically marginalized communities. What we've heard about our aspiration since the fall is that there are more than 150 organizations in Northeast Ohio directly or indirectly serving entrepreneurs. There's a lot of overlapping areas of service, lack of clear pathways between service organizations, fragmentation, and sometimes narrow focus. And many people are unaware of the depth and breadth of resources available. We want to address these challenges by creating a unified location where each of the respective services are accessible and known to each other, and where the pathways between them are clear. Progress we've made. So we've had continued conversations with potential partners, entrepreneurs, and service organizations. We're in discussion with Leadership Cleveland as a potential project of theirs for the fall. We've merged with another group, East Cleveland Global, and we've had continued strategic discussions with adjacent groups on this call to coordinate and support each other as we move forward, including Lenora's group, Local Dreams, Treasure Tank, and Clee Coin. What we need going forward is more community input about what the entrepreneurial ecosystem needs, and particularly what has changed for them in the past few months with the global pandemic.
All right, Patrick, I want to thank you for joining us from the road. I hope you're traveling safely. Thank you for being in a past. Next up, we're going to hear about rewiring your hiring from Jean Zarati. Jean?
Hello. I'm also joined by my co-leader, Trina Kennebrew.
Fantastic.
Hello, everybody. Okay, so our basic goal, our huge goal is we are now a region without barriers to employment. That's in 2030. The biggest barrier that we've been working on is pretty big. It is that cannabis, no, I got the wrong page, sorry. Cannabis, which stays in the body from 5 to 7 days, is a big block to people who want employment. And people want to work. People want to be employed. They want to be proud of who they are and what they do. And so our goal, our ultimate goal, is that cannabis would be taken off the drug list of drugs that would block you from getting a job. Now, Trina tells me quite firmly that that's not going to happen. And so our second short-term goal is that we have, for anyone who pops positive for cannabis, we have a company that they can go through a drug program be cleared and be able to do their job. Now, Trina is the owner and the owner and HR person of Direct Health Solutions HR. And at her company, she gives medical clearance for people who need commercial licenses. And part of her company, she has drug abuse counselors. It's called an S as in Sam, AP program. And these certified counselors can help people who have popped positive for cannabis be cleared so that they can go ahead and be employed. So our short-term goal, and I think it's something we might can get done this year, is to find all the places in the Northeast Ohio area where people can go who only have a cannabis positive drug screen. They're not big users of drugs. They're not, I mean, they're people who drink, have a drink at night and come to work the next day. They are social users. They are citizens who want to do their part in the community. And they're having trouble finding companies that will just help them go through a program for cannabis, because most of the drug, all right, I'm blanking out here. Most of the programs that deal with drug abuse deal with heavier drugs, right, Trina? Deal with heavier.
Yeah, that's,
Go ahead.
when you're dealing or job sensitivity type positions, you definitely have to be cleared through federal regulations. And so you can be an 18-wheel truck driver testing positive for marijuana. It impairs your thinking and, you know, and the mobility to drive. So we encourage that regulations maybe dropping that barrier for people that work in a factory or work in a restaurant. Yeah, we do the drug test, but maybe if it's just marijuana only in their system, that might be a barrier that we can lift for them to get higher. But when you find in other substance abuse like cocaine or amphetamines or PCPs, then that becomes a problem because it's a liability risk for the employer. So we really have to focus on what is the best solution to bring down the barrier, but it's not as far as the employer, it's not a insurance risk or a liability risk toward that company.
There.
Perfect. Thank you, Dean. That was great. Thank you very much. That is certainly an area where anybody who's tried to do any hiring in our community certainly relate to the need to figure out ways to lower barriers for employment. We're gonna, the India Hobbs was supposed to present next, but she's not available right now as far as we know. If you are on here somewhere, India, please be sure to reach out through the chat function or by email to Hannah or Beverly. We're going to move on now to equitable civic engagement and community empowerment. Here, we're going to hear from 4 groups. Ohio Deserves a Raise, which is seeking to establish a statewide minimum wage at $15 an hour. The Real CEO, which hopes to create a national model for resident-driven collaboration, ensuring attractive and sustainable neighborhoods. The Truth Movement, lasting framework based on truth and grounded in trust, cultivates racial healing, certainly something highly relevant today. And the Proof Project, which will seek to create a data-driven platform empowering users to generate radically effective collaborative solutions for community issues. So first up is Ohio Deserves a Raise. Chris Erickson, welcome.
Thank you, Dan. As he said, I am Chris Erickson. I'm one of the launch leaders for Ohio Deserves a Raise, the fight for a $15 minimum wage. So let's start with what we learned about our aspirations. Right now, our workforce is saddled with a very serious wage gap. An African-American woman makes just 61 cents for every dollar a Caucasian male makes. even in low-wage jobs. An increase to $15 an hour provides everyone with a salary of more than $31,000 per year. It is a raise for everyone, but more importantly, it erases that wage gap entirely. There is also we learned there's a distinct change in the lived experience with an increased wage. From the perspective of health and humanity, low wages are tied directly to low birth weights, increased teen births, premature death, and in many cases it can also lead to a poor diet, an increase in smoking, and teen alcohol consumption. This is also very telling. The stresses of poverty affect health in the same way as prolonged exposure to hazardous chemicals. All of these things improve with an increased wage. Also, there is a reduction in child abuse and neglect. People have better access to prescription drugs, and over time, we see our neighborhoods begin to rebound. So let's talk about our progress. As we've collected data, we are collaborating and sharing it with outside groups. Policy Matters and the SEIU and our group all have the same end goal, and we all make perfect partners. So moving on now to what we need. Please visit the web address you see in the final panel. Particularly, we need everybody's support, but particularly those that are in the business community. Please share that with your friends and your contacts, have them fill it out and turn it into, submit it, please. All right, thank you very much. Back to you, Dan.
Chris, thank you very much. I just want to give everybody a chance to look at that link there. It's bit.ly/ I can't read it because my eyes are not that good. But if somebody could grab that and to the chat, I would greatly appreciate it so that I can participate later. And make sure you do that. So next up, the real CEO, Chris Urban. Welcome. Chris, you're on mute. Chris? There you are, man. You're up.
Sorry, having trouble getting off mute. So Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. So the real CEO, which for everyone stands for Community Empowerment Organization, was devised at the summit last fall as a way to increase resident collaboration and engagement. We know that having actively engaged residents is essential to improving trust and quality of life within our communities. The group really focused on conducting some substantial research of existing organizations and engagement infrastructure to see where gaps may exist. We were also able to get some very valuable insight from CDC and City Council resources. And what we found was that there was already a very robust, if not overly complex, engagement infrastructure in which citizens can use to get involved, find resources, provide feedback and input, and seek change to improve their communities. In particular, we were directed to a fairly new program that was actually initiated last fall, just ahead of the summit by the City of Cleveland's Department of Community Development, which is called the Community Engagement Specialist. This is a position that's being implemented as part of the Healthy Homes Initiative, positions that are being implemented citywide in CDCs across the city. The program's goals really mirror the desired outcomes of the Real CEO effort, aimed at providing direct connection to City Hall and to the neighborhood CDCs and to provide access to resources. Because of this, we felt that creating a new organization like the Real CEO would be duplicative to this effort, and the primary objective of the group was really no longer needed at this point. But there's obviously still value in engaging with Cleveland Community Development to learn how this Cleveland Rising effort can potentially support the Community Engagement Specialist program. As such, as you can see, we have recommended that the Real CEO group, as it exists, be dissolved, but our research be folded into and shared with other groups that are actively working to build equitable civic engagement and community empowerment in our city and region. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Chris. Perfect. That's a really interesting example of realizing that there's no need to duplicate services, but we can actually kind of just pile in and push forward and give momentum to the things that already exist. Our next project is the Truth Project, and John Reinhardt is going to present on this. Go ahead, John.
In response.
No, you're there, John. I can hear you.
Okay. I want to address a little bit here. During the course of my life, I've worked hard most of the time, resulting in some successes and failures. I was also lucky to be born with white skin and the beneficiary of white privilege. We whites have perpetuated a myth of superiority, a mythical lie that has broken the bonds of trust among all Americans. To achieve true racial healing, we must first break the grip of that lie to build a new, true narrative that helps to transform our society to coincide with our founding principles. The damage this racism has done was pointed out by Dan, because over the last 90 days, it's coming in from all places. Oh.
Keep going, John. You're on a roll.
Okay. In any case, a couple things that are pointed out here. The digital divide is impacting people of color disproportionately, and we need to get that corrected. But really the most important right now is the health crisis in America has divided people greatly. In Louisiana, 30% of the population is Black, yet 70% of the COVID-19 deaths have been Black people. For 400 years, we whites have systematically dehumanized people of color and undervalued their contributions to our nation's history. We need to name the old narrative for what it is, racist, and to begin to tell the truth. It is a health crisis and an economic crisis, and it's killing too many of us and harming all of us. Through Cleveland Rising, we want to achieve true greatness and include economic inclusion by joining others to invite Gail Christopher to bring her truth, racial healing, and transformation framework to Cleveland to help us ask the hard questions about the design of racism and how we arrived at our current place of inequity. Our truth movement wants everyone, all the Cleveland Rising groups, to do this for us. Whether your issue be education, transportation, health, or the like, invest the time it takes to understand the path that got us to the challenges we are tackling now. Knowing how we got here will help us appreciate how we can create new designs for equity and inclusion that lead to a truly thriving region. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much, John. Greatly appreciated. Next up is the Proof Project. Carolina Schneider, you with us? Hi.
Yes, hi, thanks. My name is Carolina Schneider, and I am one of the 4 co-chairs of the Proof team, a group of 12 engaged volunteers inspired by one of the keynote speakers of the CLE Rising Summit, Jens Mobach, creator and founder of New Impact. His presentation was transformative, so we made it our aspiration. For 2030, we want Cleveland to be a nationally recognized model of trisectoral collaboration among private companies, governments, and non-for-profits. Those are the 3 sectors: public, private, and social. Cleveland is home, and we know it's a generous city with tremendous resources, a strong philanthropic community, businesses, government. We have over 15,000 non-for-profits in our county. But our resources tend to be siloed between sectors, obstructing progress. So we have a great opportunity to create a sustainable integration across all sectors, repurpose resources, and spark innovation to improve our outcomes. Especially in today's environment, this approach can be used for COVID-19 recovery mechanisms as we face significant challenges with limited resources. And this is a complex problem. We can solve it using a new trisectoral mindset, a new framework, and a set of tools. About our progress, well, we continue our work with James Mobach in collaboration with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum. We designed a catalyst project to prove our concept. During the past 5 months, we contributed over 2,600 hours of pro bono work, used 12 different apps, and produced over 300 innovative ideas. that we will be ready to present to the Rock Hall leadership in the next few weeks. Our objective is to produce results that will foster tri-sector innovation, sustainable collaboration, impact-centered solutions, and coordinated efforts among all sectors. So let me tell you what we need. Well, we need your help to channel a positive shift in mindset toward the tri-sector approach. So this is a call for action. We need to present and share the process and the outcomes of our project with all key stakeholders. We see this as an opportunity to partner and support all CLE Rising teams in the execution of their projects. Scale early adopters of tri-sector innovation. Engage everyone, foundation businesses, universities, and government organizations. Last but not least, we need to secure funding to hire new impact regional strategists to implement and expand the use of the new impact platform in Northeast Ohio. So we are inviting all of you, anyone that wants to learn more, to contact us. Our information is available on the CLE Rising page. Our goal is to build awareness for this concept to be widely accepted and consistently used throughout all sectors. Well, together, I believe we can achieve a sustainable success. Thanks to all our supporters, especially the Rock Hall leadership team, for their collaboration during this process. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Carolina. I wanted to draw everybody's attention to some of the activity that's been going on in the chat as well, discussing a thread that has been running through all of this, the idea that racism is in fact a public health issue. Chardonnay Graham, my fellow co-chair, whom I greatly have enjoyed working with and greatly admire, asked that question and sort of raised the point. And it was pointed out that on Monday morning, the Health Committee at City Council will be discussing that very issue. And they have a proposal in front of them that they've been investigating about whether or not to declare it, to make that declaration following perhaps the actions of Franklin County, where the county commissioners there have done the same. So that's Monday morning at 9, and you can watch it on the YouTube channel of City Council. And I hope that somebody can share that link. Perhaps Carrie Miller, who mentioned that, would be willing to do that. So thank you very much. Related to that, of course, is health, wellness, and education, which is our next project area. And let me share with you who's going to speak. We've got CLE for Me, which seeks to expose every child in our region's largest school district to multiple career experiences and ensuring they graduate with the skills that they need. Ready to Thrive will create strong, confident, contributing citizens by providing life skill education, life skills necessary for prosperity, including emotional intelligence, coping skills, domestic education, occupational discovery, and readiness and financial literacy. And universal pre-K for all, building on some activity that's been happening for many years to prepare youth to enter kindergarten by providing universal early care and educational programming for all children ages 0 to 5 years. So first up is CLE for Me. Adrian Schnall, it's your turn.
Hi guys, thanks. So the focus of our group is the kids in the City of Cleveland schools. We would love for each one of these kids to go to college, but we know that realistically, that's not going to happen. The City of Cleveland has this fantastic program in the schools. Any kid who qualifies to get into a public university in this state, free tuition, 4 years, free tuition. And yet, despite this, last year, 45% of the kids who graduated in the Cleveland school system actually enrolled in college. So we want to make life better for the other 55%, okay? We know there are job openings, unfilled positions, thousands of them all over our area for people who have skills, but not necessarily a college degree. So our goal is to expose kids in 6th, 7th, 8th grade to what some of these jobs entail, bring people in who have been doing these jobs, and then integrate training in these jobs into the curriculum in 11th and 12th grade. Well, when we started to gather data, to our delight, we found that there are actually programs in place with these exact goals. There are 4 high schools in the city of Cleveland schools that have been designated as academies, career academies. Each one actually does integrate training for specific careers into the curriculum. So our question then became, how do these programs work? What can we do to improve them? So we've had an extensive interview with one of the principals in the Cleveland school system, and she gave us some really good insights in terms of how the programs work and maybe how they could be improved. We've got reams of data on graduation rates in these different high schools, graduation rates for Black kids, for Latino kids, for kids living in poverty. But look at what the graduation rates are overall in these career-oriented academies. You can see they're not optimal, okay? We think we can get those up. We think we can get them to 90%. And just remember, this is just the percent of kids that graduate. We don't know how many of these kids are actually ready to step into a job. And that's something we're working with the school system to start collecting data on. So what we're going to do is interview teachers, parents, kids, get their perspective on how these programs work, and then engage the business community and some trade organizations to give us some more manpower, more mentorships, more financial support. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Adrian. Next up is Ready to Thrive. And Angie Ignani, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Dan. Ready to Thrive wants to help Cleveland rise by taking a look at our education and the benefit of our kids becoming well-rounded citizens, because they are our future after all. So a couple things that I heard while speaking to people in and around the city is that recently retired Cuyahoga County teacher told me that all of the heart has been taken out of teaching and it's all mechanical now. A parent wanted me to ask the question, why can't kids count money? And the response that I heard from a Summit County school administrator was that state testing is putting schools in a position where it's not being taught. The next part here is focusing on the benefits of kids learning how to solve a Rubik's Cube, which may seem like just a simple block, but it is so much more than that. And one thing I heard was, everyone I know who can solve a Rubik's Cube is a pretty cool person and has done something with their lives. That came from a 19-year-old living Rubik's Cube solver that's living downtown. And a 4th grader from a Stowe Monroe Falls grade school told me that solving a Rubik's Cube relieves his stress. So the progress here is about sharing another perspective, and that is teaching mindfulness, because teaching mindfulness can create a positive work ethic and desired career directions, and it can promote positivity in the workplace. And mindfulness can improve infrastructures in the simplest ways. For example, being mindful can tell you that the highways are not trash cans for soda pop bottles, which can lead to a cleaner environment and a prettier city. Mindfulness is knowing that we have a choice in every moment. And right now, I think that's more important, is so important for all of us to know and understand. So what is needed are more working group members who can see the value in helping Cleveland thrive by taking a look at our education and what is being taught and perhaps what is missing. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Angie. Next up, we're going to talk about universal pre-K, and Rich Robbins is going to help us there.
Okay, Dan, thank you very much. As a universal pre-K for all of the greater Cleveland, our team's touchstone is the summit theme of accelerating economic growth, equity, and opportunity. Therefore, an educated workforce is essential. Education is a continuum starting with pre-K. The team found that there already was a program for Cuyahoga County called Invest in Children. One of our team members is Dr. Rebecca Dorman, who heads up the county program. The program started in 2007 and is supported financially by the Health and Human Services Levy, nonprofits, and business. A study for the period from 2011 to 2016 was conducted by the Mandel School at Case Western Reserve University, validating benefits of the program. The current program covers 4,000 preschool children in the county. We would like to extend that to the entire greater Cleveland area. The team wants to support, learn from, and extend the knowledge of the county program to the entire Cleveland area. Money is a critical issue. The recent passage of issue 33 was very meaningful. This was designed in part to provide $5 million additional funding for the County Invest in Children program. The county is currently working on a budget and strategic plan which will impact our efforts. It is obvious that the pandemic will impact the county revenues and therefore budgets. Finally, success will depend heavily upon the sustained support of government, business, and nonprofits. The team proposes to develop a value proposition based upon the tri-sector approach taught at the summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rich. And thank you very much for leaning into this really important issue. Next use is land use, area, land use, transportation, and sustainability. And we're going to hear from a group hoping for free public transit, advocating for accessible and convenient public transportation that, like other public services, is free for all. Green CLE Rising Community Solar, which is what it sounds like. Enhancing the quality of life in the region's most under-resourced neighborhoods by dramatically reducing energy costs and creating better than living wage jobs in an exponentially growing manufacturing sector to meet our environmental crisis. A new take on the lake seeks to transform Burke Lakefront Airport into a vibrant waterfront district accessible to all, uniting people of all social, economic, and racial backgrounds. And Point A to Point CLE, hoping to provide a transportation system that is multimodal, accessible, multimodal and accessible, aligning economic opportunities and affordable housing, and maximizing existing infrastructure while also prioritizing equity, connectivity, and wealth building. So first up is free public transit. Erin Miyoshi, you're up.
Okay, thank you. I'm Erin Day Miyoshi, and I'm one of the leaders of a growing group of advocates for fare free transit in Cleveland. We believe that public transit, like we said, like other public services, should be free, like our library system and our education, but it's part of an infrastructure of an equitable society. It's vital to Cleveland's future economic growth. It will connect our neighborhoods and support density of jobs around transit hubs. Gustavo Petro, former mayor of Bogota, said, "A developed country is not a place where poor people have cars, where rich use public transportation." In Cleveland, the current revenue model is that only 15% of RTA revenue comes from fares. The majority of the budget's from sales and use tax, so it's a publicly funded system. It's not a novel idea to go fare free. It's already happening in Denver, soon Kansas City, and other cities are considering it nationally. So over the last few months, our group's been advocating and building partnerships. We were finalists for the Paradox Prize, which was a proposal that we put together with the Cleveland Public Library System and Youth Opportunities Unlimited. And that process gave us the opportunity to be in front of a group of grant committees that included the transit leaders from our region, as well as foundation funders. Just raise this idea. We've also been building partnerships with Clevelanders for Public Transit, which is an existing local transit advocacy group. We've been researching how other cities are funding and operating fare-free systems. So right now in this current environment, the coronavirus has made us realize as a community that public transit is an essential service and it serves essential workers. We want to thank Greater Cleveland RTA drivers and the team. They really have been heroes of keeping the buses going. And we know that RTA's management teams made tough, difficult decisions to prioritize that service has really been focused on getting the people who need it to work and to where they need to go. In response to the coronavirus pandemic, other cities have gone fare-free. In Ohio, it's Akron, Cincinnati, Toledo, Youngstown, nationally, Austin, Seattle, Boston. And they've done this for two reasons. One, for safety. It's limited the interaction between riders and the drivers. But also, it's in recognition that for some people, the cost of a fare is an economic hardship. So for instance, in Cleveland, a single trip is $2.50. And that's one of the highest fares in Ohio. So what we need now is that Cleveland's RTA is going to have to make some tough decisions going forward. With the pandemic, they're projecting this current year a 45% decrease in revenue. And just mind you, most of that's from the sales and use tax, because that's what the budget's modeled on. Recognizing that transit plays really essential role in our community. Annually, it serves 45 million riders. That to survive this economic depression, RTA is going to have to evolve as a public transit agency, but also our community and business leaders really need to come together in thinking creatively about a new revenue model for public transit. So our next steps is that we want a seat at the table. So our Greater Cleveland RTA's board is currently composed majority of appointed officials who not necessarily are riding transit. We would like a seat for a transit rider, because who can decide best about making these decisions than somebody who actually uses transit every day? And then we'd like assistance in building a public advocacy plan and campaign for public transit. So when the coronavirus ends, we have a plan, and it's a bold plan about public transit for Cleveland's future. All right, thank you.
Erin, thank you. There's a conversation happening on the chat about parenting and its connection to some of this as well. I don't have time to respond to it directly, but I did want to say that I don't know that there's any of these working groups that aren't of interest to parents. Greg, I thank you for raising that point and encourage you to get involved wherever you can. Next up is Community Solar. Jim Budinger, welcome.
Thanks, Dan. Our group aspired to bring community solar solutions to under-resourced neighborhoods. Community solar gardens enable neighbors to pool their resources to create a shared solar array in perhaps a former brownfield or the rooftop of a participating business nearby. Then they all become consumers of the solar electricity produced and part owners of that array. Well, we found out that not only does our state lag others in solar development, but Ohio actually has policy that prevents so-called virtual net metering that allows community solar gardens to coexist with public utilities. So for now, we shifted our focus towards working with nonprofits, urban churches, and schools. The less money they have to spend on electricity, the more money they have to provide services to those most in need. We found out about a variety of novel purchase power agreements that allow nonprofits to do just that. We also aspired to create better than living wage jobs. We learned about the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners and heard from a few sources that someone who has completed coursework and certification should have a better chance to get a job in the solar industry. So our progress so far, we've had some very productive discussions with people in the sustainability offices, both in the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. We also talked with some of the largest civic-minded solar energy providers serving Northeast Ohio, and we're tracking the efforts of the newly incorporated Cleveland Solar Cooperative. We explored some options for St. Paul's Community Church to reduce their electricity costs. They understand the benefits of going solar, but in reality, their community needs help with things like the roof first. And Pastor Doug Horner is unfortunately moving on from St. Paul's next month. We met with Mike Foley, who leads the county's sustainability department. Their very unique aggregated solar program includes a provision that allows nonprofits to piggyback on the procurement process. Well, this results in reduced electricity costs immediately and opens an affordable path to owning the solar panels in the future. So this could be a good solution for the urban community school we plan to meet with next. And finally, we identified Max Hayes High School, Tri-C, and Polaris as potential candidates to host the coursework towards certification while in high school or for those seeking job retraining. What we need? Well, our group is down to about 2 or 3 people. And so we're looking for a few more to help us with changing public policy to enable community solar in Cleveland, prepare for working meetings with the external partners we met with so far, evaluating specific solutions for some of the nonprofits that we want to work with, gathering input from those with low to moderate incomes who might benefit most, and reaching out to those 3 schools to advocate for certified training programs. Thanks, Dan. Back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. Next up for a new take on the lake, Brian Gibbons.
Thank you, Dan. I'm Brian Gibbons, and along with 3 other launch leaders, head up New Take on the Lake. For those who aren't familiar, ours is a vibrant waterfront that we're looking at across the county with Burke Lakefront Airport as the gem, being created through a community-led, sustainably focused planning that heals the lakefront and creates opportunities for all Cleveland, greater Clevelanders and beyond to live, work, play, and relax. We've got 4 pillars to the plan that we're currently working on, including what will be the future of air service, best use for how to activate the property, accessibly, sustainably, and economically. Funding, always a big question, how do you want to pay for it? And also stewardship, who can own, maintain, and manage the program, the property itself. The issue itself does trigger private, public, and social sector entities collaborating together, some of whom may have not seen themselves as partner in the future. So New Take on the Lake, on the one hand, does take on the tri-sector approach as was unveiled during the Cleveland Rising event. And in limited discussions with city leaders and also with environmental activists, the repurposing of Burke Lakefront Airport and adjacent territory has never really received full consideration. So kind of like feuds throughout history, the exchange comes down to a couple of contractions, basically tis taint, tis taint, tis taint. And really that kind of conversation doesn't get anybody anywhere. So we're hoping to further that conversation. Currently our progress is in establishing a framework to handle the tasks, prioritize the rosters of businesses, institutions, community stakeholders, decision makers, as well as local, state, and federal offices that will all be involved actually in such a conversation, and generating also an understanding that New Take on the Lake's economic environmental promise does fit a post-pandemic recovery. Elements of New Take on the Lake are already in existence, whether it's the Lakefront Trail that's going on in the city of Euclid, the county's Lakefront Public Access Plan on the highways or in byways for bikes and pedestrians, and also lake resiliency efforts that are currently being looked at. So what do we need right now? Well, realistically, for New Take on the Lake, we need Cleveland Rising to double its 10-year timeline, because this will take a long time to do. Other than that, we're looking at facilitators within our own group to be able to help us sort out the work, apportion that appropriately, figure out roles, agendas, outcomes, and what have you. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Brian. And our last one here in land use, transportation, and sustainability, Olivia Ortega is going to talk about from point A to point CLE. Go ahead, Olivia. I think you're on mute, but you should take yourself off mute there real quick. You're good to go.
Thanks so much. So originally when the group of folks interested in transportation and transit came together at the Cleveland Summit, or at the Cleveland Rising Summit, we focused around, the focal point was really around the fact that transit should be easy for all Clevelanders. And it should be something that multimodal transit, so whether it's cycling, it's walking, it's taking the train or a BRT, it should be something that anyone can use to get relatively easily and safely from point A to point B, or in our case, from point A to point CLE. So since that time, we've really worked to hone our vision statement for what transit-oriented development could look like for our region. And we realized pretty quickly that because of, and this was mentioned earlier by Aaron, because of the financial challenges facing RTA and challenges that are frankly going to be exacerbated by the current economic crisis, we needed to come up with a vision for a transit system that utilized the existing transit hubs within our community, which we've gotten away from as job hubs have moved, as places where people live have shifted over various decades, and car usage has become quite frequent. And so focusing in on the ability to use the existing transit hubs, we really thought, like, what if around those existing hubs, we could be an advocate for new jobs, job development, job hubs, for affordable housing, for healthy, accessible grocery stores, for all of the services that folks need to live their daily lives. And for them to be able to travel from one place to another with relative ease without having a car, without using a car. So again, since the summit, we meet up monthly, and we've got great representation from transit agencies to other multimodal representatives like Uber or Lyft. So we've got a really great group of folks that are meeting and still trying to get to the bottom of what is the current environment of economic development and transit-oriented development in our region, which is quite complicated. And then pushing forward an advocacy strategy. And this is really what we need is, and what we see for the future, you know, the question of how do we get a transit-oriented development advocate, a trusted advocate at every economic development table around the region. So that's where we're headed, and we're looking forward to keep going.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your work, Olivia, and your leadership, and for presenting as well. We're down to our final topic area here, our final work area. And as we enter this, I want to encourage all of you who, if you have thoughts, if any of these have really truly resonated with you and you have feedback to offer, you have ideas to help refine any of the presentations and any of the projects you've heard about, or if they're ones you want to get involved in, please go visit us at CLERisingSummit.com and find working groups, and you'll be able to navigate your way to submit feedback and let people know you're interested in helping out. We're in our final area, as I said, the area of population growth. Grow the CLE seeks to cultivate, lead, and expand. Do you see what they did there? CLE. Growing our urban core by 500,000 people, and doing so by attracting new investment while leveraging local expertise in healthcare, professional services, and manufacturing. So presenting on behalf of Grow the CLE, Josh Maxwell. Go ahead, Josh.
Thanks, Dan. I'm really excited to be bringing this home for everybody, and thanks for sticking it out this long on the presentation. I promise I'll make it quick, and that way we can get on with the rest of our weekend. So again, my name is Josh Maxwell. I am one of the group leaders for Grow CLE. Our group is focused on population attraction and, more importantly, retention. First and foremost, when we were in the design stages at the summit with the larger group, there was a lot of different perspectives in terms of how to address the topic of population growth and retention. It covers a wide variety of information, different topics. Some of the information we already had available, some of it was missing, a lot of it was fragmented. So the first step in our process, the next steps was to implement that research. To really gather it, to understand it, to break it down, and then to be able to parse out where we wanted to focus. So based on that research, unfortunately, with the trajectory, the population trajectory for Cleveland right now is a steady decline over the next 10 years as a projection. So what we want to do is be able to not only attract, but retain the population that is coming to Cleveland. So some of the testimonial feedback that we got through our research helped us focus on four main groups: college students, young professionals, retirees, and expats. We felt that the efforts and resources that we could provide to the larger conversation would be best focused with these core populations. So some of the feedback that we got, for example, college students surveyed expressed a sense of isolation and disconnect from other parts of the city outside of their campuses. Similarly, young professionals surveyed expressed the city as very friendly, but hard to make friends and connect further outside of their, for instance, their 9-to-5 daytime job networks. And then retirees and expats surveyed expressed a desire for better age-friendly and walkable communities. So from there, we really started to layer all of the separate information and research that we had gathered together. We stepped out into the community and partnered with several different organizations that were already doing similar work. For instance, the Cleveland Leadership Center was working with college campuses throughout Cleveland, both on the east side and the west side, surveying college students and young professionals, and really trying to get into their heads as to why they decided to come to Cleveland and what incentives are really going to encourage them to stick around further. We also partnered with Global Cleveland, and from their perspective, they were able to give us insight into the growing population of immigrants that are coming to Cleveland and the vital necessities and impact that they provide to the broader community. And lastly, our most recent partner was Destination Cleveland, and with their assistance, we're really able to push our group's process forward because they're really focused on the attraction end of the equation, and we can now focus on the retention end of that equation. So all of these partnerships are really blossoming into great collaborations, and our next steps are to identify what some of those resources and products and deliverables could be envisioned as. So we're really eager to start thinking outside of the box, identifying how this conversation is going to shift this year and the coming years ahead based on COVID-19 and how people choose to find their longtime city and how they navigate not only their city, but the broader United States in terms of travel and communication. So what we need still is continued funding, support, and input from different organizations throughout Cleveland's communities. The more information that we have, the more partnerships that we can formulate, the better and broader this outreach effort is going to be for all of these target audiences. And we look forward to it.
Awesome. Josh, thank you so much. Thank you 100% of you who presented. And I just want to, as we're getting close to the end here, I wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge that we had 15 people presenting on behalf of 15 work groups, and there are another 17 other work groups, if my quick math is correct. But there were 140 people or so on the call today. That means that there are, over 100 of you who have been engaging with all of this, listening, catching up, learning what progress has been made. Over 100 of you have the power to help each of these move forward. So when you go to CLERisingSummit.com to offer some feedback, think about what you might be able to offer. Think about who you might be able to connect somebody with, because most often the resources that people need are not, it's usually somebody, it's usually a relationship that can make the difference, not necessarily, sometimes ultimately it may be money, but right now the best thing that you might be able to offer somebody is a connection to somebody you know. So please dig in, think about it. And if you have other ideas about feasibility for some of these, offer those ideas as well. Our focus is really on supporting these launch leaders and getting as much feedback as we can. And as our economy emerges from this pandemic, we really are depending on your insights and your thoughts. And we're also depending on you to share this information. So if there are people who in the community who will want to hear about this, send them to CLERisingSummit.com. This whole conversation is being is being live streamed and will be recorded and will be on the website, so that you can share it with others as well. And so please do be sure to do that, or pick one of those things to do. You don't have to do all three. But the groups really do want to know what the community thinks about their aspirations and their plans and their progress. And there is really quite a lot that you've all absorbed here. So again, the website is CLERisingSummit.com, and just go to working groups and you'll be able to share your feedback there. As we wrap up, I want to really thank the 15 presenters who did just an extraordinary job today, but that's really reflective of the extraordinary work they've been leading since the summit in October. I want to especially thank the Destination Cleveland staff, without whom this really never would have happened. You all are amazing, and we really appreciate everybody who has been a part of this from really prior to the October summit. And I want to thank my fellow co-chairs who are also involved in and have also been here as a part of this today. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. So I think that's about it. I think we are now wrapping up. And I basically just want to give all of you a high five or two. I want to give you a hug, but we can't because we're socially distant. But I know you're here because you love the community as much as everybody. So thank you for participating. Thanks for being with us and for being on the side of Cleveland. And we look forward to what we're going to do next. So it's all up to you. Have a great day, everybody.
What stood out to me was when Michelle said, your idea has to have love in it. Because love, what stood out to me was when Michelle
trying to share
said,
another video here.
your idea has to have.
I got to mention that, Beverly. I'm sorry. There's a so Beverly's going to get that screen.
Can you see the share?
We're seeing your PowerPoint presentation.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It's
Zoom. You can blame the technology if you want. Stick around, everybody. There's a great video here.
Okay, let me try again. Good?
Go.
What stood out to me was when Michelle said, your idea has to have love in it. Because love is passion. And with passion, you can change a lot.
To have shown up for 2.5 days, you have to have love for this community. You have to have love for each other. You have to believe that this community can be better, that the person who is my neighbor or the person who is a resident of the community on the other side of town that I've never met before, that they deserve to have all the things that we're talking about today. So love has to be at the center of everything that we do.
I guess I'm grateful to all of you for what you've given me these last days. I've been at this for a long time, and somehow I had more hope and inspiration out of all of you. That's a big emotion for me right now. Thanks for being here.
People who are considered to be minorities were able to see that there are people who are from other persuasions who are just concerned about this community as they are.
You guys putting yourselves out there and catching the heat, right, that you have. And I think it's putting our skin in the game, no matter what shape or what color it is, and saying, we're going to do this. And if people and entities and structures aren't going to follow along with us, then we're just going to push them out of the way and do it.
What this process did was add a human beingness, which is something that we can't afford to lose in this community.
I'm really elated to have been a part of the creative work that's going to be changing the next coming years for Cleveland and really reforming the dynamics of what this city has to offer.
I was lucky enough to be.
Why?
What stood out to
We can't afford to lose in this community.
I'm really elated to have been a part of the creative work that's going to be changing the next coming years for Cleveland and really reforming the dynamics of what this city has to offer.
I was lucky enough to be in a group of people
that have done this work for decades, and one in particular that is willing to be one of my mentors. So I think out of this, we need to continue to cultivate relationships and mentor and learn from those young and old. So thank you.
And just for me, I wanted to say thank you to all of the experienced professionals that were in our group that gave the younger early career and college students the opportunity to be heard, to participate, and to eventually lead the conversation today for our final product.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Great job.